Greetings everyone, Slurgical here. Welcome to Modular Game Board Part 6. Everything has been primed now, so let's start painting it. I'm going to paint it with just matte black, just regular craft paint. This time I primed with matte Mod Podge, and it's applying very well. Nothing is sliding, well, okay, almost everything, nothing is sliding. I'm just going to paint everything black, except for the hooks where the power fencing goes through. I'm just going to skip ahead because everybody knows how to do this part with pretty much everything in any color. Now that all the black is done, and it looks pretty boring if I leave it like that. Leaving it perfectly black matte like that doesn't really tells you it has a story. It looks like it just came out from the factory and it's pretty boring. So using foam like that, I just roughed up the tip. I'm going to use some gray, and I'm going to stipple some chips and other visual damages and aging it. After putting to the tip the paint, I just clean it up a bit, dry it up a bit, and then I start stippling the fencing section, as you can see there. It also makes more sense as being battle worn and weather worn. After some video sorcery, we're all done with the stippling and ready to move to the next step. I will be using some of that gold, kind of an old gold color, so it reflects the light enough. So you'll see how it's going to look at the end. Once it's all painted, use a toothpick to clean up all the holes where the paint dried in there, so you can put the filament through or whatever material you want to use there. Well, the sirens weren't for me. They don't have the long sleeve jackets that I would require. So you see, some of them is a bit hard also to poke, so just make sure that you go through all of those little holes. I'm doing this while the paint is still a bit wet, so it's just easier to clear up. After staring at it for a few hours, and I decided to add some flair to it, so I masked those little areas, and I'm going to paint it in yellow by stippling again like we did before. And for that, it will prevent people from running in the dark and tripping when the power is down and breaking their neck. Or maybe it should be, depending if they're friends or foes. Same thing again, just ripping apart the flat end of the foam so I can stipple some effect on it. I recommend stippling it once, one by one, and once they're all done, I recommend that you do it a second time. And doing it a second time gives an interesting effect because the first layer of stippling like that, once it dries, it's because the back is black, it makes it a bit faded away. And when you do a second coat like this randomly, it brightens some aspect of it and keeps the other one a bit subdued. So it looks like it was painted once and then painted again. And so it has a history. It's been aged and repainted over and over through time as needed. Let's look at them once it's done now. I'm just gonna do a little bit flyby right next to it. And there's some more details, like you see the little pieces that sticks out. You can either leave them like that, or you can paint them with a little bit of red or green or blue to indicate status. We'll be doing the same with the stippling of the yellow for the door. I will be releasing in the next free pack another modified door, so it would you will be able to put some of those strand of electric fencing or energy fencing through a side of the slide-in panel or glass that came in the original set. Once you're happy with the result, you just keep it like that and you move on to the next section. I'm going to be doing the same for the wall end caps, and that's where the energy collapses and goes into the wall. Here's just another overview on how the walls look before I put the energy by using some filament. I went ahead and I did a few of them. It's like a threading needle, and it takes a little bit of patience. With the help of coffee, it helps with patience. And that filament looks really, really good on its own. But when you print with it, I really don't like how it looks like. So basically, I'm using it now for other random stuff, and I just found a use for it. You just cut it in a 45-degree angle, like you would with preparing a filament for printing. And you just slide them through, just like that. And it sometimes it goes really easily, and sometimes it's a bit more difficult. It's just depend on how much paint residue you have. And I was a bit sloppy and I didn't really do a good job cleaning. And so that's why I'm having some difficulties here. So to stop embarrassing myself because I can't put it through it, I'm just gonna pull it all out, and then I'm gonna use a toothpick and try to clean up the mess I made in there with the paint. The toothpick, the great savior. So I'm just gonna try to clean it up a little bit better. Since now it's dried, mostly dried, and with a little bit of wet chunkiness in there, it's a lot harder to clean. And that's where the trusty box cutter come to help. Just be really careful, don't press too hard. You just want to clean the edges out, because otherwise you can slip, you can break it, you can cut yourself, and it becomes really, really messy. It ruins your workspace, it ruins what you're working on and the paint that you've done, and it's also really painful. I don't recommend it, and to minimize that risk, just be less sloppy when you paint. Let's try that again. So first, second, and then just sometimes you get restrictions. So just guide it with thumb into the next hole and you push and it still doesn't go through. Now don't forget that tip, you cut it in 45 degrees, so it's really, really sharp. And I poked my finger and made a hole in my finger. It was not that bad. The box cutter would have been a lot worse. I somewhat know how to sew pants and things that get torn like that. And I thought, hey, I can do that and not injure myself like I usually do with sewing kit. I know this might be a bit tedious to watch, but I want to reflect how it is doing this. But the result at the end really worth it. And I got success here. I'm going to go to the other one and I will attempt to see if I have success. And I did have success. Then you go to the last one. The lowest row is a lot harder to put through, and you might bend the end of the filament and just push it through a bit to the excess and cut that bent section. The other ones are really easy to thread through, except for the last one on the top. You just have to be a little bit careful because you have to remember it's 3D printed and it's by layer height, and I print from bottom to top, so it's breakable. For strength reason, I don't recommend printing in draft mode for these. Just the regular mode is fine, or the higher quality prints will be even more solid. But it doesn't have really high details, so regular setting, basic setting works great on an FDM printer. As for resin printer, I don't have one, so I don't really know. I don't know what to recommend. You guys know better if that's what you're using. But I'm sure you'll be able to print this wall with no issue on a resin printer. Once it's all done, leave a little bit of excess sticking out. It will be easier when you come to glue it and then to clean it up by cutting the tips off later. And keep those little pieces that you cut off, because I have another craft for you later. So I'm going to save all of them and you'll see how it's going to be used. The straight walls are really easy to do, so I'm not going to go through the process. But once you put them through, you see they're kind of going all over the place. You just adjust the bend. And one thing I was really surprised, and at first I was really concerned because I want to make straight lines, and I didn't know, because of the curve of the filament on the roll, how to flatten those. So I just went ahead like this, and I was really pleasantly surprised by how visually more interesting it is to see those little bowing in between those wall sections. Then I decided to just let it be that way, and it really turned out much better. Let's work on the end caps, see how it all resume into one little hole. I'm going to show you how I'm doing that. Same thing, you thread it through and you just rotate it and make it fit into that big old section there, and you just cut the end, and you move on to the next, and so on. Then I'm putting the last one. Well, I already put that one, but it kind of fell. It holds in place long enough for you to just put some glue in there. I'm just going to put it aside and move on to the glue. I was going to use the glue gun, and I had recurring vision of me destroying the leaves of my alien trees. So instead, I'm just going to use plastic cement glue. The same one that I used to assemble miniature kits. A big glob in the middle of the big hole, and on the inside of each of those power ends. Let's look at the final product. Everything connects together. It's very modular. You can make your fencing parameter as big or as small as you want. You can put it on any terrain you want, and underneath each of those sections there's a connection clip. You can connect them to tiles that will be available in the future for free in a free pack to secure it to your game board. Thank you so very much for watching this video, and please don't forget to like, to subscribe, and leave a note. Tell me what you think about all this and what you would like to see in regard to those fencing. I do have plans to expand on making maybe a tower or something like that, a power unit specifically for that. But if you want something else, let me know.